Join us on Happy Looming, where we come together to talk about looms, yarn, and the joy of creating.
Hello, this is Christy.
And this is Janae.
Welcome to Happy Looming. Today we are so excited to invite Shawn Barrick here to talk with us. Shawn, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I was born in Michigan, and then my dad relocated the family to Mississippi. And I've been here ever since. It was like in high school, I came down here, and my family, immediate family, is still down here as well. So since then, I have a fabulous nephew, and I work with Hitachi ABB Power Grids, which they make transformers, and I'm in the finance area. So I just pretty much do numbers and spreadsheets for a living.
Ooh, okay.
So much fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Shawn, you have been one of our CinDWood designers for the last 6 years, ever since we started having designers.
Right. Yeah.
I have always loved your Christmas ornaments, your Tiny Things ebook that you made. That's probably one of my favorite things. I have a lot of your ornaments designs on my tree. So that is one of my favorite things. But when did you actually begin loom knitting?
Okay. I began 3 months after I broke my arm figure skating back in June of 2010.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. After I had broken my arm, I knew there was something missing in my life, and I just couldn't figure it out. And then a local painting place offered a nonprofit group to come in and do classes on loom knitting. And I kept looking at that and going, no, I don't think I can do that. This arm, it's not really working well. But for whatever reason at the time, I kept getting drawn to seeing, was the class sold out? And finally, I signed up for it. Went there and realized, okay, I know nothing about knitting, but I can actually do this. And it took me 2 hours to do a baby hat, which just your basic folded brim for that first time. But that was all it took for me to become hooked on it. And that group made hats for charity, and they would give them to shelters, to orphanages, to hospitals. And that is what I realized was finally missing in my life. I had done a lot of volunteer work in college, but since my work career had begun, a lot of that had gone to the side just because the timing with working wasn't coinciding with when the places I used to volunteer with needed volunteers. And the beauty of loom knitting is you can do it anywhere and at any time, which worked for my schedule. And I ended up doing 500 hats with that group.
Wow, that's great.
That's incredible.
And I did not look into different stitches. All it was just kind of color changes. And that particular loom that came with the class was a 41 peg plastic loom for adult hats. And that is really what drove me to CinDWood in the beginning. Was I could not do any repeat patterns with a 41 peg loom, and my OCD was kicking in and just driving me nuts. So I found your 40 peg adult hat loom, and I was like, yes.
It's a divisible number. Yay!
Yes. I mean, numbers people, we
Yes.
So, excuse the dog. But let me close the door.
Dog wants to get in on the interview.
The dog's excited. Join in on the excitement, right?
She got excited with me. Yes. 40 peg loom.
Yes. She's like, let me tell you about my mom's loom knitting.
Oh, yes.
It's amazing.
Then actually that group, some of the people who headed it up moved to Texas, and I was kind of lost then of what am I going to do? And my church in the newsletter just 2 months after that posted that they were starting up a loom knitting group.
Oh, how nice.
And the people who showed up were needle knitters. Okay. There were 5 plus me, and I thought, okay, well, I'm the only loom knitter here. And they became impressed with the fact that while we were sitting there and knitting and conversing and having, conversation and getting to know each other, that I finished a complete hat. And they were like, wait a minute. How did you possibly do this in like 2 hours, with all the talking and all? And I was like, well, that's the beauty of the loom knitting. It's quick and it appeals to me then. So we ended up starting classes because there really wasn't anybody else in my church that was doing the loom knitting. It was sort of, they wanted to get it going, but they didn't know what to do. And they were needle knitters. And to really broaden it, once my pastor found out, she said, can you come and knit a hat in both of the services? I'm like, you mean like sit down in church and knit a hat? and they were like, yes. And I'm like, okay, that's really going to feel odd, but okay. And so I had to do it at the 8:30 service and the 10 o'clock service. So I was like, oh my goodness.
You were like a living advertisement for the class.
Yes. And that was really the goal. And at the end, I would give the preacher the hat,
and he'd like show it up and would he hold it up for everybody?
Oh, he would put it on. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Here it is.
Yep. And, his wife was also like a co-preacher. So I made a hat for each of them, basically one in each service. And they were, talking about that and getting the interest at that point. And here I was like, I don't think I'm going to finish these hats while I was working, like doing prayer. And one of the ladies next to me was like, just keep knitting. Don't worry about it. Just keep going. And I was like, oh, this is really feeling odd. That started the interest. And we started doing monthly loom knitting classes. And we got the people involved. The group grew to about 20 something people a month that would show up.
That is wonderful.
We were knitting hats for the homeless because one of our charity functions at the church is Grace Place. And that's like a daytime shelter for homeless. And we feed them. So we were knitting the hats to give to the homeless. And there's over 100 that would come a day for the daytime shelter and food.
Wow.
And then we were doing them for a low income area children's daycare and knitting hats for them. And it just kind of grew from there. And the ladies finally are the ones that introduced me to the prayer shawls because they were still needle knitting prayer shawls at this point. Okay. And they could only do maybe one a year. And these are like 5 ladies. So they're only doing about 5 prayer shawls a year.
And can you give us an explanation? What is a prayer shawl?
Well, it's really any kind of a shawl that's made prayerfully. And so for me, I end up ensuring that I have positivity around me while I'm knitting. And lately, with it being Christmas time, it's including Christmas music in the background or a Hallmark Christmas movie. Just so I have positive thoughts and I'm surrounding myself with positivity and I'm praying. If I don't know who it's going to, it's a generic kind of a prayer at that point. If I do know who it's going to, I try to make it specific. So every time I pick up that prayer shawl, I'm trying to say a prayer of, to include that
kind of infuse that positivity into every fiber of the blanket.
Right.
I love that.
I actually didn't know what a prayer shawl was. And so I did a little bit of looking into it and I saw some really lovely articles about it that also said it doesn't matter if you have a religious orientation or what you feel is a positive energy that you imbue into your stitches. Right. So whether it's for an individual person that you're thinking about, you think about them from start to finish. And so the idea is that you put your love and your thoughts and your prayers into this item that you're making for someone else. And I thought that was so lovely.
It really is. When I originally, the first time I saw you post a post for a prayer shawl, I was thinking, oh, maybe she's Jewish and she uses it for like Passover. Cause I didn't know what that term meant. I was like, oh, maybe it's something they do for special things. They put it over their head or maybe it's this. And so I think sometimes people don't understand the reference. And so it's so important to just, kind of define what this is. So they were knitting these and they can only make up to about 5. You were saying 1 a year?
Right. One per person per year.
So then you started doing them on the looms. You were doing double knit rake.
I started with the double rake. Yes, I had ordered one of your looms, the long loom at the time, as a double rake. And I started playing with that because up until then, I had just been doing hats. And I was like, all right, we're going to research this because they're only getting 5 done a year and there's a greater need. And after I would finish a prayer shawl, I would typically give it to the preacher to do a blessing. And then our ministry for the outreach area would be the ones to distribute. But since COVID, that's kind of changed right now. And I can explain that a little later. But I started with the double rake, and since I didn't want anything complicated, that worked best for me. I wanted to focus on the positivity and not the stitching. And in the beginning, that was the easiest. And I could just go get a couple of skeins of like the homespun yarn and do a double rake. And you could change that up a little bit with the double rake stitches and all if you wanted some variety. And then put fringe on it. And I got pretty quick. I could do one in about 14 hours that way.
Wow. What is the size of the shawl that you would create usually?
Usually it's anywhere from 18 inches wide to 22 inches, somewhere in there.
What is your favorite gauge loom that you use?
Lately, I have been using the 5/8 baby Afghan loom. The
round one. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. After I really got comfortable with the double rake and I was getting other people involved in that, and we were able to really start producing a lot more, the feedback that we were getting was so positive that's why I wanted something super easy for a lot of the beginners to start with. And since then, I've really become more interested in variety of stitches and texture. And so that's why I moved then to the round loom during COVID. And I've been trying some new patterns and things with that. And I love the 5/8. I've been loving the Karen Cakes yarn because I like the solid colors, but I do like that striping. Or I'll use some Vanna's Choice again because it's a solid color, and that really shows the stitches a whole lot better.
Oh yeah, that really makes them pop when you use
it. Does, and that's really become something I'm really interested in. Which during COVID, my favorite stitch has been the owl eye. I have absolutely loved that. Combining it with some other ones, I've been working on a new pattern, and I'm going to try to do a few for CinDWood with the prayer shawls on this round loom.
Wonderful.
Oh, that's exciting. When do you think that will?
I'm getting close to being done with this first one, and I've already got an idea for the next prayer shawl.
Ooh, that's wonderful. I would love to in the future create a bundle that we could have the loom with 2 or 3 or 4 patterns of prayer shawl patterns, so that people can start this journey and have ideas and know where to go. So I love that. That's wonderful.
The length of a prayer shawl needs to be at least 5 feet. However, again, I don't really stick to exact rows, exact measurements, because everybody is a different height and a different body and a different shape. And so you can make them just about any, but you really want it to be long enough from fingertip to wrap around is the main thing.
Right.
So when I make them, I'm just kind of holding it up and thinking, okay, is it, my fingertip to fingertip pretty much. But the ladies who do the true needle knit will tell you they need to be 5 feet long.
5 feet. That's what you're going for.
For the most part, I'm just doing rectangles because I'm not doing increases or decreases because, again, I don't want to have to think a lot. I want to focus on the positivity. And so if I'm doing different stitches or things, I'm using little rubber bands from those other little bitty loom things that they were making the bracelets with and all, and wrapping them around the pegs because they stay in place to indicate my border pegs or a change in different stitching and stuff. So
that's a really good tip.
It really eliminates more thinking. That's really what it comes down to for me.
Right.
So that I'm just focused on, the positiveness. And when I'm done, then I tend to attach little positive thoughts or prayers, just depending on the person. And I just kind of tied little notes onto it. And
I love that.
During COVID, then I've been mailing them to people.
Okay.
People that I know, people who have lost family members, people who have been diagnosed with breast cancer, whoever I think basically needs a virtual hug, which to me is the equivalent of the prayer shawl.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's an interesting point, because it would be like wrapping yourself in that love that you've put into it.
Right.
Which I'd love for the shawl, but are there other items that you could also do instead of a shawl with the same prayer item, I guess, idea? I
think hats are the first thing that come to mind, because again, you've got people going through chemotherapy, losing their hair. One, it gives them warmth, and two, it also makes them feel like they have, somebody who's embracing them as well, even though it's just on their head at the time. And I say that because my mom was a dosimetrist. She's a retired one now, but she worked at the radiation treatment planning for cancer patients.
Yeah.
So I was giving hats and things to her to give to patients for her work career as well. And the feedback that she was getting back from them was also so positive that, it fueled me to keep doing this. And people will tell you, you just don't know how much this means to me when I send it to them or they receive it. My church has continued to give out prayer shawls, but they will do it at a distance. So they will call the individual and say, "Are you going to be home?" And then they'll drive over and drop the prayer shawl off or the hat or whatever they're giving. And then they'll get back in their vehicle and say, "I just put it at your front door." And the crafts ministry group will attach or sew on their little particular prayer that they've come up with, an explanation of the prayer shawl. And of course, they've been blessed by the preacher before delivery as well.
What a beautiful way to share love. I think it's even during this time of COVID where we all are feeling a little bit more separated and a little bit more like we aren't connected to each other as much. I think these can even be more impactful because I think there is a lot of aloneness right now and that feeling. So these 25, you said it grew, your Looming group grew to around 25 people. Are these same people now doing hats and shawls? Has shawls gotten even more popular too?
Shawls have definitely gotten more popular. The Loom group has purchased long looms as well. And so we have some individuals who have stayed focused on hats and some who have moved to the prayer shawls. And I think we're giving out around 20 a year now.
That's
wonderful.
Amazing. I just love that. So it sounds like usually more bulky yarn is used for the projects you're doing because you're working with more beginners, but technically probably you could use any gauge loom, any size yarn to create these, because it's really more about the emotion going into the project, not necessarily what the end project looks like. But it's this whole philosophy. It's like a philosophy of, while I'm creating this, I'm putting in all of my positive energy so that the person receiving it not only gets a beautiful item, but they receive all of that love and positive energy and thoughts of healing. When you're talking about cancer patients and things like that, as we send our prayers of healing, I mean, there've been a lot of studies about energy work and how energy from different people and positive words and how that actually does molecularly change things. And so I just love it. I think it's so cool.
I think so too. And I love that you can do these for not only your family and your close friends and people that you know personally and love and care about. You can also make them for people that you don't know, who are out there that are struggling or in need in some way. And I love that is also an option. It brings all of us closer together. And especially right now, that kind of brings up to my mind, how could someone go about donating these items if they sit down and they try to make something like this, how could they donate them to someone else?
Well, I think, reaching out to shelters or hospitals or churches would be the first way to get connected. But during COVID, each organization has their different restrictions.
Right.
And so even when I'm donating to the church, I mean, we're closed. We're not having in-person worship. We're doing Zoom and things as well. Mm-hmm. And they will have limited people at the church. So I have to set up an appointment to drop them off. They have somebody come meet me in the parking lot, and I pop my trunk and they get the items out and they go back in and I drive on.
Right.
But every organization is going to be different, and that's going to require people to find out what those rules and regulations are during COVID.
Right. So if an individual isn't part of a group that's already doing something like this, they could find maybe a resource or someone to help them to get these items to people that need them.
So
just by contacting the different places.
And there's quite a few different places. I found an interesting, called liftinghandsinternational.org, and they are looking for blankets for refugees, and they like them to be made out of the fleece. And so it would probably be like the Bernay blanket yarn that you would want to use, but they're saying they can be in any size, and they want them to be handmade. And I will connect the link at the bottom of this for this, but this is, they're sending these to actually Jordan, Lebanon, and Bangladesh to refugees. So this is something that is an international program, but something that they are currently accepting blankets. And I was thinking, whoa, wouldn't that be nice to have a blanket that's sending positive energy to people who have lost their homes or lost their lives, their livelihood, and are having to be in refugee camps. And a second one I'm going to connect a link to is the Veterans Cap Drive, which this is a program through the veterans hospitals, and they are also still accepting hats for the veterans that are undergoing chemotherapy or other treatments that they have to do. And that's just two. And that was just through Googling. I mean, it's amazing how through the computer we can be connected to so many things. But I think one thing that's really important is always wash your hands well prior to working with your yarn.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And making sure that you're in a clean environment as you're working with these items. And but don't be scared, even though we're in a weird time, right? It's a weird time. COVID's a weird time. And I think for some people it's like, oh, it's COVID, I can't do service anymore, or people won't want my hats, or people, but I think they do.
They do.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of places that will come and pick them up from your home as well. So you don't have to go out and take them. You can schedule, like you were saying, an appointment, and they can come and pick them up as well. So
recently in town, I've also donated a bunch of hats. We have a place, an organization called Stew Pot, and typically they are feeding the homeless or veterans, people who are needing help, and they normally have it inside, but with COVID they've been basically doing a walk by line, and so they are kind of doing like to-go orders of the food, and then they were accepting these hats as well as another item that these people could pick up as they were getting their food. I know my church was also doing some hygiene kits that they were passing out with the hats and the food, so there's also that option.
That just made me think of an idea. Hygiene kits are so important. And, the little like soap saver bags or whatever, like those would be a wonderful knitted item that you can also do very quickly and imbue with that positive energy and love, and put together a little kit like that to donate as well. Sure. That would be really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, they like, small things that can just fit in a pocket when it's a homeless individual.
Exactly, yeah. Something they can kind of just bundle and have everything.
And I think right now it's important too, because like you said, it used to be that they would be able to have this inside. So even though it's cold out, they could go somewhere warm to eat. But right now it's the outdoor line. And so having a warm hat or a warm scarf will, makes an even bigger difference to these people that are struggling with homelessness and different things. Because just because COVID's here, that problem hasn't just disappeared, right?
It's gotten worse.
It's gotten worse.
Yeah, because of the unemployment rate and different things. So I think inspiring people, I think our goal here today is to help inspire people to keep working on your projects and finding ways to serve the way Shawn and her church has and their group. I mean, it's such a uplifting and wonderful thing that you helped grow. I love that your preacher was like, come to the church, make 2 hats, show them what it's about, because that's just grown.
I just have a quick question for you, Shawn.
Sure.
Because you've been through this, someone listening might be like, oh, I would love to do this with my organization, my group, my church. What would be your advice for them to get something like this started?
I would say to start with the hat, because it's just an easy go round and round and round kind of situation. And it's one stitch to get people started. And from there, it really just, the people direct what you're going to do. I mean, I would have people coming with patterns that they had found saying, how can I make this? And I was like, oh my goodness, I got to research now. And then they would be asking, well, what's a different stitch I can do? And so, then again, I'd have to go research. So I would be prepared for, what else they might be wanting, because at that point, when we were starting, there wasn't as much online. And I've got a lot of elderly individuals who really don't do a lot of research online, and they really like that visual one-on-one attention and all. And so for me, that was like, I had to do homework before every meeting just to have something else new to relay. And then it really grew to helping them fix errors, or what do I do?
Yes.
Yes. And so they really directed it, but literally I started with the hats, and we had a cause, which is very important for them to work toward a specific goal. And as that goal was met, we would find the next, whether it was for homeless or for a shelter or whatever. And then after they got comfortable, that's when we started working on the prayer shawls to increase those numbers as well. We also had the lady who would pass out all of these items come and discuss with the group on the feedback she was receiving when she was able to actually deliver in person. We've even been doing baby hats for the newborns in the congregation.
The hospitals. For like the newborn babies born into your church. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, because the preacher would, before COVID, go visit the new mothers and the babies and take them a children's Bible and a hat. Since then, they've been having to, like I said, kind of do it from a distance and deliver things to homes, but they're still continuing that. And everybody found their niche, basically. What interested them the most? What project did they most enjoy? And they kind of created their little subgroups then in the knit group of, I'm doing baby hats, I'm doing prayer shawls, or I'm doing children's or adult hats or scarves or whatever seemed to interest them. And that really, is what the classes then became focused on as they became, interested in certain causes or whatever.
And so the diversity now is they can continually learn. And the great part is if somebody's like, okay, I've been making hats for a really long time, I think now I want to try this. It's all set up. It's already set up to have people that can train each other and teach each other. And I'm sure there's a variety of looms that are used. I'm sure there's the plastic looms, some CinDWood looms, other looms that people can find. And that's also the great thing about this is you don't have to have a certain loom or a certain project. It can really be anything that you feel you want to create and imbue that wonderful spirit into it of happiness and joy and healing. And I just love it. I'm gonna start making ear warmers for some people, and I want to do that while I'm making them. I want to create this positive energy so that when it's given as that gift, it just means more. And
it does. Yeah.
You feel differently too. And it would also, I just feel like it also benefits you while you're making it, because you're giving yourself that lift as well while you're in the process. So it's just, this cycle effect of love and positivity and feeling good. Yeah.
That was what I had said in the beginning. I knew something was missing in my life, and the loom knitting and donation part is really what fulfilled that aspect that was missing. And I liked that I was able to spread love. And that really became the whole purpose, was just sharing the love with people. I don't even know most of these people, but that's okay, because it makes me happy to think I am sending smiles and love to other people.
Yeah.
Shawn, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an amazing discussion. I hope that everyone is inspired to continue to create and donate your items with love and prayers and just joy. So thank you so much. And until next time. Thank you for inviting me. Oh, we're so grateful you're here. Till next time, happy looming.
Bye.
Happy looming. Bye.